Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours of your day. I'm Michael, your MC for today's adventure, and today's show is the introduction to Step 3, Got Baggage, continuing in our own Tim Flynn's Foundations for Self-Discovery. It's Monday, so we'll also have our regular journaling update near the end of the show. You're probably going to love this discussion. We've got a lot of angles and stuff to stuff into this short introduction. And let's meet my fabulous fellow host, Agnieszka,
Hello.
psychosomatic illuminator. Sorry about that.
And I just wanted to say that today's talk is actually how your baggage trips you up because the got baggage was the theme of the week.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
There you go. And our other expert today is Dennis, freedom facilitator.
Hi everybody, how are you doing? Glad to be with you.
We've got two other hosts that are going to join us later. Willow, our trauma consultant, and Deirdre, our development strategist. That they'll get with us shortly. So far we've moved through two of the 8 steps of the program that Tim had in mind: self-discovery and our values. And now we're tackling baggage. Everybody seems to have baggage. What is it? Where did it come from? And who gave it to us to carry? So let's start there.
Can we be
Who wants to
Freudian?
start?
Can we be Freudian for a minute? Started in childhood. Your childhood has the biggest impact on you. When you are a child, everything that a person says to you, you believe in it. You have no filter. So people say you're stupid, you're like, I'm stupid. It's almost like a mantra that we repeat. So when these things get ingrained in us as children, then as adults, we tend to repeat the same mantras to ourselves. We touched on that in the face reading on Sunday.
Super interesting angle. And why not take it beyond Freud and go even beyond the childhood? Because some may say that we even have baggage that comes from, further back than our childhood. So
Like the
it seems
womb
logical.
or
Even
further
beyond
back, before the
even
womb.
even before the womb. Because remember, well, if even your body, let's say, if even your nose remembers your forefathers that you have never physically met, then is it possible that other aspects of us, the emotional being, the mental being, some may even want to say the spiritual being, also remembers things that are beyond even our lifetime? And then what kind of baggage is that? Is that something that lifts us up? Is that something that wears us down? And how can we address that? That the kind of that which was inherited to us from even beyond this lifetime. For some it's the physical body, for others it's like emotional things. There, I remember that there have been really interesting studies about trauma as well, and not trauma that we would have suffered in this lifetime, but trauma that is passed down to us through previous generations. So it's even like the space that we are born in, the cultural environment, but then
But
also the
okay,
trauma
so
that our
there's two
foreparents went
things,
through.
right? There are two things. So there's the cellular memory. So our ancestors, like our physical body and the blood and the DNA that goes into our ancestry, that's one thing. And then there's the mental, like past life regression type stuff, that's whole other thing, right? It's a whole other ball of
Hmm.
wax. So there are
Hmm.
two different things that go on there. So which is which? Or do they both exist at the same time?
Well, to me, it seems logical that, if we can accept ourselves as holistic beings, so we are not only physical, we are not only emotional, we're all of that at the same time. So it seems logic to me that we're influenced on all those levels by things that even uh, passed to us and around us before we came into this life, so to say. And then yeah, and then it is I think one of the processes really which can be really revealing is to find out, just as you mentioned earlier, to go back to our childhood and find out what is influencing us, that we would have experienced or taken on sometimes even subconsciously during our childhood, and then maybe even to go beyond and see, what did our ancestors go through, what kind of experiences did they have. I was born in Germany, so like Second World War would have been a huge influence, even on my grandparents' generation. So there were things like happening historically to our ancestors, so to say, that surely have an influence as well. And I remember hearing about an interesting study that was done to mice, I believe, like lab mice, and they would traumatize one generation of mice. I think they would take them away from their mother pretty early on, and then they would raise them perfectly well, perfect nutrition, good environment and everything, and they still could trace the results of that trauma 2 generations down. So the mice that came 2 generations after the ones that were traumatized, which all grew up perfectly well, they never were exposed to any trauma whatsoever. They still suffered, and it was still traceable that they underwent some trauma, not themselves in their lifetime, but the generation before them. And there's other studies. I think there was one in the Netherlands as well, which coincidentally was able to correlate, I think, was it diabetes or obesity in women in their 30s and 40s, and they had nothing in common, but the fact that their great grandparents were starving in it was like a foster home, I believe, in the early 1900s. And this it was really interesting because all the hospital records were available, and they could trace exactly what happened to their grandparents in that hospital. And they all had some issue with starving and with deprivation of food. And it seemed that as a result of that, the study was indicating that these ladies then in their lives, they had like issues around food, eating, and they were they had some physical issues that all matched each other. And the only correlation or the only thing in common that they had was that all their 4 parents were in that foster home and had to starve for several years. So those things are really interesting. They came to my mind, like thinking about baggage. How can we? What are we carrying around with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is there environmental concerns, because I was thinking of a different study from Dutch, where they looked at the starvation situation that happened during one of the world wars, and how that environment in which all these babies were born during a period of starvation, and then how that transpired through their different, not only the babies that were experienced that, but then consequently their offsprings, and how they related to food and stuff like that. It was an interesting study. But then you've got all the cultural things like religion and communities and all that kind of stuff as well.
What about
that
like
influence
ancestral
too, right?
expectations? Like, I'm Polish, right? So there's all that strife and fighting for independence and being erased from the map. That was my great grandparents' time that Poland wasn't on the map.
I see Deirdre has joined us.
And Willow.
Welcome, Deirdre. Oh, and Willow too.
We're lucky.
Hello.
Deirdre is our development strategist, and Willow is our trauma consultant.
Can you guys hear me? I don't know which one will work. I don't know if it's my mic or if it's my earphones.
It seems like both of them are picking you up.
There's an echo.
There is a bit of an echo.
Good.
A little bit of an echo. Okay. You might want to pick one mic and turn off the other one. Willow, how are you?
It's just the headset. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hold on, I'll just turn you up so I can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Perfect. We can hear you too.
So what are you guys talking about?
How about Willow? Willow, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
All right. Well, so we were just getting started on the who, what, where, when on
We got
where
down to the
baggage comes
Holocaust.
from.
We were talking about World War II and starvation. That's where we ended up at.
So yeah, we were talking about the environmental kind of issues, but also obviously there's things that happen to us during our childhood. There's things that happen even before our birth that could be potentially baggage. You guys got anything to add in that regard?
Well, a pretty common, what's the word, event that I have noticed with my clients is a form of neglect. And I hesitate to say like abuse or outright neglect, but in general, the symptoms are kind of the same. Even if you're not intentionally neglecting them, and you're still caring for them, and maybe there is a valid reason for not being able to be attentive at that time. I lost my train of thought.
So in psychosomatic therapy, that kind of neglect shows up right here. There's like a bone right between your throat chakra and your heart chakra. And if it's like really protruding and very hard and sticking out a lot, that shows that you were trying to reach for attention as a small child, and you were not getting it. So the bone is pretty flat in people that have gotten good support throughout their childhood.
That makes sense why the tapping therapy is a calming sensation.
That
I use that
spot,
quite often.
that spot is also the inner child spot. So that's supposed to be the inner child chakra. That's not like, it's not every chakra system will tell you about the extra chakras, but in some places it talks about inner child chakra being right in between the throat and the heart.
It's also where so I found this out on a Dog the Bounty Hunter, but I looked it up and it's true. Used to watch a lot of it with my sister, but this guy, Dog the Bounty Hunter, asked a young couple if he could help soothe their crying infant. And he was like, "May I? Is it okay?" And showed him a trick. He held his hand like this, and he laid the baby on its stomach, like where its sternum would be right here, and he just kind of like rocked her, and she immediately, within like 10 seconds, just was like, "I'm okay now." And I was like, how could a stranger, after all the commotion, because I mean he's a bounty hunter, so if he's at your house, it's probably not a good thing. There's a lot of commotion for an infant to calm down that quickly. I was like, wow, that must actually be a real technique. And then when you told me about the tapping, and we had our session, and you kept telling me to put my shoulders back, and I kept like putting my hand here because it hurt, like I wanted to cry, and I was like, oh, my body wants to cry. That's what this feeling is. And yeah, and then I think that's what
the rolling shoulders forward is protecting the heart, so you feel already hurt and protecting the heart. But we're not talking about psychosomatic therapy today. We're talking about how your baggage trips you up. How does your baggage trip you up, Willow?
To tie back into what we were just talking about, getting caught up in the physical sensations and the emotional flashbacks that require these soothing techniques. That's why I got into them, and I was like, I want to know how to calm myself down. It was something interesting that I read. I know I've talked about like adoptive parents. If you miss a bunch of cues over and over and over again, that can actually form, or not just adoptive parents, but it's I was explaining, because my mother is adopted, and her mother did not have children before her. So I'm not sure if they were like in tune with each other. So if they were miscommunicating their entire, her childhood, it could have embodied as neglect. And she could have easily missed a bunch of cues from me, especially when I was going through a very traumatic events, not necessarily related to her. Like that can cause your body to get used to always being in distress and always calming, or just always being in distress because you don't know how to calm yourself down. So
nice.
I think
so. We have some comments from a listener, Chris McMillan. I don't know if you guys know this person. He's sending a lot of messages. Some of them are that he likes my headphones and your microphone, Sam. And he also says he was adopted. So Chris, tell us if being adopted gives you extra baggage or if you notice that there is baggage from being adopted. Maybe that could be an interesting point. Anybody else want to talk about their baggage?
Well,
I don't
noticed...
know.
Go on.
No, I was just going to talk about Chris because I have seen his stuff. So, I don't know. He's a pretty cool guy.
Was he really adopted, or is he just pulling our leg? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. That's interesting. I'd like to know more.
It is Chris, right? So, the boys, gentlemen, do you want to talk about your baggage?
I think Dennis had something to say.
Sure. Well, I noticed that just by traveling a lot, I got more skilled in not tripping over my baggage. So while, like, I guess the experience of being on the move and of traveling over here and over there quite a bit equipped me with the ability to my bags accordingly and to handle them on the way, to kind of determine when I will have to carry them myself, when I can put them down, when I might look left and right, to find one of those carriers that you get on the airport or the train stations and and push it around. Or maybe sometimes to identify even somebody that could help carry the baggage, which was hard for me, because I tend to want to do everything myself and to carry it myself. But so that has been like one of the lessons also to learn, that sometimes it might be the lesson might be, to just take the baggage that you have and to grow by learning how to carry it yourself. But sometimes the lesson might be to learn how to delegate as well, and how to ask for help, and how to look left and right and see somebody who might be even better equipped to carry your baggage, or you might be able to to help you with it. And so using that as a metaphor, I think the sheer experience of traveling and of going out there and of collecting real life experience carrying luggage has been really helpful. And then, of course, as a father, once children came along, the baggage got much bigger and is much more. So that again, was then something that forced me to even plan ahead better. And but also, I learned over time the value of not carrying around too much baggage, and that I think it required trust as well. Trust in how we want to say, in life, in universe, and that there will be support, that I don't have to carry around everything that I think I'm going to need tomorrow and next week, but to just keep it small and keep it light. Because if you carry around a lot of baggage, then that obviously wears you down, and that limits also your ability of being in a relaxed state, of looking left and right, of seeing all the opportunities that are there. And it just limits you where you can go. If you have a lot of luggage, then certain bosses won't take you because you have too much, or it's too heavy, or you have to pay extra. So
but you told us the other day, or in one of the videos, that you traveled the world, and even that day when you got robbed, that was the face reading video, when you got robbed, and then you showed up in a new city and you got food and you got shelter, and you were able to work it out so that you didn't starve. And that's amazing, because that means that we could travel without baggage, with luggage, right? But what does that mean about baggage, right? So that brings me to the backpack story, right? So this one time, a long time ago, I was at the stock, and the shaman said, he said that every time we walk, where's Deirdre on the thing? Are you talking?
No, I'm not. I am not talking. It just went to me.
But
Maybe
it went to
you.
Maybe okay, I'll tell the backpack story later then. You just stay tuned, everybody. Backpack story coming up. Deirdre, talk about your stuff.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm not that interesting. But I really do understand what Dennis is talking about. Oh my gosh. Having kids, they've shown me triggers that I had no idea that was there. I guess because I was like, I knew where triggers were, and so I could kind of craft my life a little bit so that I wasn't triggered so much. But having kids, I'm living with little human beings around me, and they trigger me all the time. For me, my baggage is just kind of knowing that it's there, and I'll try. Well, with all the help with Michael I'm getting at the moment with the journaling. I try and kind of journal it at the moment. That's pretty cool. And I guess it's a gift because I get to learn more about myself as the days go by. Yeah, that's kind of, but baggage is just kind of there. I don't know if it can ever be kind of clear of it. But for me, just kind of knowing that it's there makes my days easier. It takes the pressure off, like, oh, okay, I'm feeling really tense right now. It's funny that you mentioned about the EFT. I don't kind of tap it where I tap it. I tap it on my solar plex, and I kind of massage there, and that works really well for me, especially when I'm feeling like there's like high stress moments. Like, oh my gosh, what's a high stress moment? It's pouring rain. I've got to take the laundry in, and I have to go get something from the grocery because we literally just ran out. That's like and the kids are hungry. That's like a high stress moment. That's like I'll be like rubbing my solar plex at that point and be like, okay, let's try and invent something with what I have. How's that for a baggage moment?
Your solar plexus is the center of your ego and how you show up in the world, right?
And your will.
And your will, right? So having all this pressure and then soothing the solar plexus really, makes sense.
So that's actually hilarious, or not, I guess maybe hilarious. I find it really interesting that you say that because I was having like stomach issues and it didn't really feel like I was like nauseous, like I was sick. It felt like it was just in that same spot. And I found a binaural beats, like a sound vibrational meditation therapy. And I put it on my speaker, which is like just a round speaker, and I just held it on my body and let it just like pulse on my body, and like my back was starting, like my neck, as soon as that one went away, my neck started hurting, and I like changed the song to like whatever chakra that was supposed to be, or and did that too, and it was actually like a physical soothing technique. And I know a lot of people who listen to music in general when they're stressed out. I didn't realize that I do it all the time. I do not like to be in a car without some sort of music. It drives me absolutely bonkers.
What type of music do you listen to?
I listen to every.
No, when those particular times when it's too much. So I noticed that I listen to different music when I'm just pissed off, to when I'm like trying to pep myself up.
Yeah.
To get motivated.
I guess because it's so difficult to explain to other people. I haven't spent much time. I've spent a little bit of time. I would say like I have music for like getting pumped up, like getting me into the mood for something. And then it depends on what is too much in my life. If it's too much just anger and frustration and I'm pissed off at the world, I will switch to like really sad, like almost I'm resigned to the end and this is my life and I'm not gonna live in nothing but pity and misery. But then I get bored of that and I'm like, okay, well now I want something else. So like it is actually like an emotional outlet for me. So whatever I'm feeling at the moment, I'm feeling too much of, I kind of just get it. Like that's how I express it because it's so hard to explain. All you can do is say those really high stress moments because it's so hard to figure out what's actually going on. Why is it so high stress? Where am I feeling it? And one of the first steps is being like, oh, I feel it here. A lot of times children who are very upset, especially if they have no recourse, like they don't know what to do, they'll come up to you, and especially little girls, they'll be like, my stomach hurts, I feel sick, it hurts. And that's like a sign that like they're very upset about something. It's like an emotional response.
It's funny that they hold it in the stomach, like in the womb area, like that's like I do know that. I did say that when I was a child a bit, like, oh, where's it hurting? I just feel like I'm just hurting here. That's really funny. It's like it kind of, because that's meant to be a very open kind of space. And just to have that tense and kind of close up like that, I found that, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I don't know. How about you guys? when you guys were kids, where did you talk about when you're feeling stressed or unable to express yourselves? Do you hold that stress in certain parts of your body?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to feel it in the solar plexus a lot of the time, like bees or ants, like bzzz, kind of thing. And I mean, I don't know. As a young in my like 20s, I held stress in different parts of my body, like shoulders, and then it switched to lower back, and but I always understood it was stress, so I let it go.
I also feel it manifests on different levels, right? Like, you might feel it in the physical body, and you might feel it in the muscle tension, and then there are certain areas that are prone to it, and then also I feel that some areas are very individually, like, you might have like a weak point, or you're prone to tension in the neck or in your upper back, and then it will manifest there first. And I think it's crucial to recognize that as well, and that's part of the whole like self-discovery thing, to realize where it's kind of your weak spot, or when you get stressed out, or when you're afraid, you feel it in your back, or you feel it in your belly, and then because then that helps you to identify when things start going the wrong way. And then sometimes it might manifest like in thoughts, like on a mental level, like what kind of thoughts, what kind of thinking patterns will come up that put you in a corner and that prevent you from seeing all the possibilities that there are. What kind of emotional state, what happens when your emotional state lowers down. And so it's maybe good to be aware of some triggers, so to say. What not triggers, like some signs, like what are the signs for you on a physical level, on a mental level, on an emotional level, so that you can catch yourself before you spiral down.
There was something that Bob Podolsky said the other day. I don't know if many of you guys watched his little presentation, but there was a particular point where he mentioned when somebody else triggers you or gets you angry, and he was essentially suggesting writing down what it was about that person that uh, made you angry, and then being able to look at yourself and what those qualities are in that other person that are actually in yourself. That it is really an examination of yourself when you see traits that you dislike in other people.
What I learned in
That's a
coaching
really
school,
quality exercise.
what I learned in coaching school is that you cannot notice the traits that are not already in you. So if somebody annoys you, it's because you already have that trait inside you, or it wouldn't trigger you, it wouldn't annoy you. It would be like a null reference. If somebody's walking down the street ripping their hair out, it's a null reference because you don't relate to that because it's not what you do. But if somebody is being a jerk and it annoys you, it may be because you've been a jerk before.
It reminds me also about what we touched upon, was it a few shows ago, that maybe there is no real difference between us and anybody else, because maybe there's really only just one. And so everything around us, including the people around us, are really just a reflection of something that we also are. So if we catch up on something, whether we dislike it or whether we like it very much in somebody else around us, then it's on some kind of level, it's a reflection of ourselves. So that might actually point us to some of the baggage that we have. So those are like pointers that help us to realize, let's focus on that within yourself, not within the other, but within ourselves, because really and truly there's only one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things we do kind of attract people and situations that we need to kind of grow. And if we don't grow, we end up being frustrated. But it's just really an indication of our inability to really understand, I think.
Yeah, they help us. They help us to identify, right, the baggage that we have. So once we identified it, then it's like, it's like when I'm in the airport and I say, okay, I have all these bags around me. So it doesn't help me to move them or to grow or to move forward if I keep on looking at the bags and say, oh, these are so beautiful, or beautiful suitcase, oh, I love it so much. Or if I look at it and say, oh gosh, I hate this is falling apart and this is all crap, and that's just labeling it basically. So once we identified it, then I think the next move is really to move into action. And not to like get stuck at, oh my God, I'm so bad, or this is wearing me down, or oh, this is so beautiful, because that's really what holds us in the, some may say in the illusion, that's what keeps us trapped, like in that, and what keeps us stuck in that moment. Like when we identify with things, or because we're really attached to them and we really love them so much, or because we're really repelled by it. So I think maybe a good idea is to kind of detach from, you know, how it looks, how it smells, how it stays, and you know, how the baggage, how it looks and how it appears to us in a moment, but to just accept, okay, I have this baggage here, and the goal is, you know, to move on with it and to get on the plane or to get on the train. And then kind of, you know, what is the next step from here? Do I have to call somebody? Do I have to look left and right? Do I have to go for one of those little carriers? But, you know, to basically identify what's there and what you have to move, and then to take action and take it one step at a time.
I
was
think
gonna-
there's a. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add that I think that it's one of the most helpful options, especially if you cannot observe yourself, is to ask for an outside opinion. It wasn't until I went to physical therapy and I had the physical therapist work out a knot in my sciatic nerve, and my whole body just melted into the chair thingy that I was laying on. And I just started crying because I realized at that moment that I am never ever fully relaxed. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this what relaxed feels like when you're so exhausted? And I was like, this is a random thing for me. Maybe once a year that I feel that relaxed. I was like, that's a red flag. But it wasn't until I went somewhere and I was like, hey, I'm having pain in my hips and my back hurts, and you know, she worked it down to like the specific nerves, and she realized what, you know, I didn't even know there's all these muscles in our bodies that we don't realize are there. We don't realize are tense and where we're holding, especially people who have dealt with trauma. They get very used to not feeling this because they have no way to deal with it at the time.
Okay, but now I want to hear from Michael because I feel like we keep talking over him.
Sorry.
No, you were good. It's very useful, but
I was just going to mention a kind of a thing where George Carlin, he had a little skit where he said, you know, it's all about stuff. And you got a house with stuff, and you go on vacation, and you take some of your stuff, but then you go, you know, like you said, you go into Hawaii or something, so you take some suitcases, but then your friend over on the other island says, hey, we're going to go at night. And so then you got to take a little bag of stuff and go over there. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to go up to the other hut on the. And so like all this stuff, but really, what does this stuff really represent? You know, the stuff really represents kind of our inability to take care of problems. And so we think we need this other stuff to solve these problems, or we're afraid that if we go somewhere, these are the problems that are going to happen, and we're going to need this kind of stuff to solve it. It really is about, is that really necessary? You know, because like go ahead.
Yeah, I really, that is that kind of reminded me. So years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I had a lady suggest, oh no, you in my bag, like I don't know, I don't think I had something, a band-aid or something. She goes, no, I'm always prepared, always prepared. You just never know. And so for years, I carry around this big old bag full of stuff. Like, what if? And I had mum's stuff as well. And then I got to a point of like, well, why do I need such a big heavy bag? It's like weighing me down. It hurts my neck. I've got to go to the chiropractor a lot. There's, you know, I could put it on a backpack, but to me that's even more weight. I have the option then to put more stuff in. So I tried really hard to make sure I had a little bag. But when was that? Probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I just stopped. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to take what's necessary. Like, I know I always do need a pen because I don't like, you know, having to ask for pens. And I always like to have paper on me and just the necessary stuff, really. But yeah, I guess even like, I don't know, to try and go around without any of even the necessary stuff, I don't know what that'd be like. I'd be fine. I'd just walk. Don't need to drive or anything. Like the options there. Like I didn't know that was another option, that of not needing anything, not needing that bag to get around. That's also a choice. That's also an option. So thanks, Michael.
You know, this exercise, I have to tell, well, Chris has been typing up a storm here. I have to read you guys in a minute, but including some German words that I don't understand. But But lately I've been doing this practice because even though I got rid of most of my stuff and left for like when we were supposed to move away, and so I have not that many possessions in comparison to what I used to have. But whenever I wanted something in the last year, I was like, okay, let's see if we already have it. Because most of the time, if you want something, you already have it. So, for a long time, I kept playing this game, going, okay, how do I already have it? And a lot of the time, it turned out that I already had something that would do the trick, or pretty much, or even better than the thing that I was going to buy. You know what I mean? Most of the time, if I wanted something, I already had it.
There's another funny scene out of a movie. It's the Steve Martin, the jerk, and he's like he's broke and he's lost everything and like living in a mansion. But he says, "I don't need anything. I don't need anybody." And then he says, "Except for this paddle ball." And then he's got this paddle ball, and except for this chair. And then the next thing you know, he's got like 50 things he's trying to carry. And I think it is a situation of art reflecting reality. We just when we finally get to the point that we just say to hell with all this stuff and all this baggage, but then we don't have any other thing. So we start collecting more. So like we get to a stage, but then we start again. I don't know.
It reflects.
Think about that?
I think you're right on. I think it's a reflection of our attachment to physicality too, right? Like if we firmly believe that we are physical beings and just that, and we are attached to the physical world, then like we have to be attached to that, and then we're rooted into our physicality, and then we think that we can add to ourselves by adding things to our life. And then it is the fear of letting go, really, the fear of letting go, and which is required really to go beyond that, to really unveil and discover what is beyond that. And then that's a whole trust thing as well, right? Because we have to have trust. We have to trust that, and I can relate very much to what Deidre was pointing out, the backpack or the, little bags that I also, I keep on carrying them around, like, all those little things to be prepared. And what is, if this happens and that happens, I have this and have that on me. But it's also, it doesn't necessarily mean, I think, to drop it, although it's a great exercise to sometimes just go without anything and just see what happens. But also just to be aware that, like, okay, I have this on me and I always carry it around just in case. But if I don't have it, I'm still, it still does make a difference. The ability to sit in a brand new, shiny, great new car and enjoy it and feel the comfort of it, but also to retain the ability to drive, with a bicycle, or to just walk and have the ability to walk, and to also say, okay, that's the experience right now. So basically, to retain the ability to experience, whether it's the good or the bad or however we label it, but to know that it's just an experience and that it's not all of who we are and that we don't depend on it. And then that's really like trusting in, in the place, in the space that we are moving through right now. It's like, okay, I might not have the little scissors and I might not have the backpack with me, but let me see what happens if I go around the corner, if I step on this plane and I step out of it. Let me see if universe will provide, if the world, if life actually will give me what I need in that very moment. And although I might think, before, it's like a scarcity mindset. If we go in the world and we're in fear and we have, issues of letting go, then it's really, we're limiting ourselves, to on many levels actually. So it's really to be in the flow and to trust that the things that we need to make the next step will be provided to us. I think that's a great exercise, and maybe like a good thing to keep in mind.
Dennis, you mentioned backpack, and I heard Deirdre mention backpack. Let's talk about the backpack story, Agnieszka.
It was me, backpack, yeah. So there was this guy who came to our spiritual community, and he had a talk, and he said that humans are funny creatures, because when we walk through life, and something good happens to us, like a beautiful flower or a kiss or a really good meal or something amazing, we really enjoy it while it's happening. We enjoy the flower, we smell it, and we enjoy the kiss, and we enjoy the meal. But then we walk away and we don't think about it anymore. We let it go. Like, just, okay, that was a nice flower, and I walk away from it. But if something bad happens to us, we gather it all up and we stick it in a little backpack that we carry on our back. And every time somebody cuts us off in traffic, we package it all up, we put it in our backpack, and then we walk around with this huge backpack full of crap. And every now and then, what we do as humans, we sit down under a tree and we take all these bad experiences from the back, especially if somebody's mean to us a second time, and we go into the backpack, we find the other times that people were mean to us, we rub it all over ourselves, we wallow in it, we roll around in it, and then what we do we leave it there? No. We put it back in the backpack and back on our back. That's how we deal with stress, and I don't know. Maybe there's a better way. Do you guys think there's a better way?
That's a great
Yeah,
story. Yeah. It reminds me about another story, the story with the two monks that were walking, for the whole day. It's a brief one. And then they come to a river, and those, and they didn't say a word, like complete silence for hours and hours walking. There was this girl sitting on the side of the river, and the river stream was really heavy, so she couldn't cross it. So one of the monks, he just takes her on his back and carries her over the river. And then, the two of them continue walking by themselves. And like 5 hours after it's almost dark, like the other monk turned to him and said, like, how could you do this? So we're monks and you're not supposed to even look at women, and you took her up and you touched her and you put her on your back and you carried her. How could you do this? And the first monk turned to him and said, like I took her up and I carried her across the river, and then, I dropped her, like I put her down on the ground and I left her there, and you're still carrying her around.
That's the story that Eric tells me every time he disagrees with something, or if I give him like if I say, how could you do this, like you did this thing, he'll be go, do you know the story of the two monks?
There you got it again.
Every single time. I've heard that story more than most people, I'm sure.
I had something to add to the like the physical baggage. And of course, as I said, mine went blank. Hold on.
Oh, you're breaking up anyway. You might as well wait a minute.
Oh,
Michael?
gather my thoughts.
Yeah, gather your thoughts.
Am I better?
Yeah, you're better. Did you gather your thoughts? Are your thoughts gathered?
Yes, it did. So I completely agree with the having attachments to like physical baggage, like your stuff, especially in times of, need. I used to take care of a bunch of children. And so I prided myself that I had like everything that parents, and I wasn't a parent, that, parents wish they could carry around. And, but it took me a long time to realize that I not only have like the need to be prepared for a situation, but I will use my items to organize my fragmented memories. So it's almost like I have a memory attached to everything that I have, and I have a lot of things. So I think my life is like super fulfilled, and I can go back and I can think about the memory of when I did that, because my memory is pretty bad on a day-to-day basis, especially when I am either feeling like super depressed or even super great about my day and then I crash. It's really hard to remember all of the better things about your life, or when you're like super excited and happy about your life, to remember the things that you're responsible for and keep you grounded. So that was really hard for me, getting rid of stuff, because I was like, my memories, I can't live without my memories. Like, and my husband did not understand. He was like, your memories are in here. They're in here. I'm like, yeah, but I can't access them. So this is what I tie the memory to externally from my body. And yeah, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but I definitely think there's an emotional attachment to a lot of our physical baggage, and it's not just like being prepared. It goes a little bit deeper than that. Like, why do you feel the need to always be prepared?
Well, I think you're right. It's like a safety thing. Like if there's like a really big, if I'm going out to find food, some berries or something, and I know that, hey, I've seen a big bear around this area. Like I saw it was up on a rock before, but those berries, I really need those berries. So that kind of emotional memory that, okay, these berries are necessary, but I'm in a really dangerous situation. So I need to be prepared and I need to be vigilant in this particular point. That makes sense. But our our brains aren't that clever to kind of go, okay, there's nothing scary about the situation. Somebody's just being an asshole, but the emotion's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
and
do
I
that.
think
It'd
you
be
touched on something else, which was the attachment of actual things like stuff to our emotional baggage too. I think, a lot of people identify themselves with their stuff. Like they need a big car, they need a big house, they need a big wardrobe and lots of shoes and all kinds of stuff. And this is a reflection of their baggage as well. But go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I think to take self-responsibility for that is also an important step, to realize that it's not, somebody else who gave you this, and and then you blame, the circumstances or anybody else but you about it, but to take self-responsibility for the baggage that we're carrying around. And that's really like a radical thing if you look at it. But if I'm at the airport with my baggage or on the train station, then it's like, like I packed those and like I brought them here somewhere. I must have taken them up, whether willingly or consciously or unconsciously, but that's my baggage. So realizing and taking self-responsibility for the baggage that I'm carrying around means also to retain the ability to say, oh, that's actually not what I want. So you have to take self-responsibility before you can actually let it go. And then you can decide if you leave it or if you help, if you ask for help or whatever action you take thereafter. But if you don't take responsibility for the baggage that you are walking around with, then you will always look for somebody else or blame somebody else to resolve that situation. But maybe the situation is there for you to resolve it. Maybe that is the exam, that maybe that's the test that life is giving you in this moment, to learn how to take responsibility for what you have, for how and what you're walking around with, and then to determine, with your free will, whether you let it go or whether you carry it around and move on from there.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you're carrying around a snowsuit and you live in Hawaii, you probably don't need that. But a lot of people might think that that's a necessity. But
You
with that
know,
said,
I had
I know we're getting close to the end here. We've
no,
got
but
a
I
couple
want to
things
add
left to do.
something about the
Okay, go ahead.
snowsuit because
Yeah.
because for the last 2 years I've been living like spread out across Canada. Like my stuff was in Calgary, it was in Montreal, it was in Calgary, it was in Victoria. There were all these places where my stuff was, and then I moved everything back to Victoria. But my snow coat, like my big Polish winter coat, is in Montreal because there's no winter in Victoria, and I sometimes worry about it. Like, how's my coat doing all the way across Canada?
So the big thing in my family that everyone fights over, we have a saddle that I learned to ride in that I have claimed, even though I don't ride. It's like half, it's not rotten, but it needs repair. I don't know how to repair a saddle. I don't ride horses right now. I don't even have any place to put it. So it's sitting in my mother-in-law's basement. But my mom will text me and ask me about it all the time. She'll be like, can we go pick that up? Because your papa made that stand and I want that kept in the family. And I'm like, I get it, but do you really have to have such an emotional attachment that every single time that we talk? Like, but I noticed that, like, I was like, oh, that kind of frustrates me. And then I was like, I kind of do the same thing, especially if I know someone has something that I want back. And I'm like, hey, are you gonna keep that? Are you gonna get rid of it? Can I have it back? So that was one of those things where like it reflected. I was like, oh, okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. I was like, it's okay. She's got an emotional attachment. It means something to her. Maybe she doesn't realize how much it means to her, but maybe that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we were gonna pack a lot into a very short period of time. And
Hang
we've
on,
definitely done that.
before you start, I have one more thing. I have to say hi to Colin Dixon and Ryan Rhodes and Chris McMillan. And Chris, I'm going to share all your comments with the team, but there wasn't enough time today. I'm done.
Right. And we do need to just touch on what we're going to talk about tomorrow or for Wednesday's show.
What about journaling?
Oh yeah, well I'm gonna get that, but
All right.
I just wanted to.
Wednesday's show is more about baggage. Our conclusions about baggage. I don't remember what the title is, but it's going on with got baggage. Continuation
Well,
with
I
that
think
theme.
there's something very interesting that Tim brought up, and that was the 10 cognitive distortions that we all kind of derive from our baggage, which I think will make it pretty clear to a lot of people how difficult or how difficult we make our lives with our baggage.
I can't wait to talk about that more because I started reading it today and found it absolutely fascinating. It's right up my alley with like trauma consulting. These are a lot of issues that people are dealing with and they don't even realize it.
Oh, and I did remember one thing that we're going to be having tomorrow, which is the first installment of our
Wednesday.
fallacy of the week, or
Is it Wednesday or
That's the end
Thursday.
of the week.
That's Thursday. Oh, I'm so
Okay, yeah, we're
confused.
still shooting for Wednesday.
So with
Okay,
the
so
time,
that'll be on Thursday. We'll be doing the fallacy of the week,
yes,
logical fallacy of the week.
logical fallacy of the week for the first time. Yes.
All right, so wrapping up with the topic for the day, we do have our journaling update. So does anybody want to go first in regard to their update on how their journaling is going? I think Agnieszka's got a particular interesting
So
update.
journaling is still hard, but I got this book, and it's a question every single day of the year, and then you write 5 years next to each other. So every year, as like the second year, you'd see your previous year's entries above. And so I started writing in it on the 25th during that Lunar New Year. So we'll see how that works, and I want to see how it feels a year after to see the question and answer from the previous year. But I've also
So
been
I,
keeping up with my other journal because I have to.
That's
yeah, I
that's really
think that's
funny.
exciting.
I've always wanted one of those books.
You can find them at
I,
Target.
like
That's where I got mine. Is there Target in Australia?
Yes. Oh my gosh, how backwards do you think I am?
I don't know.
They
The only other
closed
country
out.
I've been to is Korea. They had a Target there, but I didn't know.
Target failed in Canada, but I got my Q&A a day from Amazon, and it came in a couple of days. So, and look, it's got a gold spine. It's really pretty.
Yeah, I think it's a really an awesome way to kind of track how your feelings change over the years when it comes to particular subjects and topics and values and all these types of things. And then you really do, I think that book is really going to demonstrate to you and to you, Willow, how much you know you can learn even over a year in regard to even the simple things. I think that's really a valuable exercise. So well done.
Thank you.
I realized that I had been journaling before I even knew that I was journaling, because for years I've been like having those little notebooks, and then when I would watch podcasts or when any thoughts came to me, even like when I was working out, and I discovered like a new combination of techniques or so, like I would like note them down, and I have this like stack of little notebooks, and I noticed that I kind of was afraid to looking back over them, because I already have so many ideas of what I want to do and what I want, like so many projects going on. So I know that if I look back at those books, I'm going to be reminded of so many more ideas and things that I could come up with, that I think it was a little fear of being overwhelmed by those new things that could reveal, or that could come out of those notes that I took, and those ideas that I wrote down. But I think I was reminded of that a while ago when Agnieszka showed the book and the 5 year writing down of thoughts and of stages, because I think you could eventually like draw so many ideas and so much inspiration from it, that it just could fill the rest of my life right now with what I would have been noting down for the last couple of years. And then something happened also. You remember you mentioned Bob Podolsky's talk earlier, and I was watching it as well, and he also mentioned journaling, and it kind of inspired me. I think I have much more room of improvement of incorporating it in my daily routine and of giving it more time every day. But I was particularly intrigued by when he was suggesting to write down your very first memories that you have during early childhood. So that kind of sparked my interest, and I thought, oh, let me try this, and then I tried that, and that was really interesting. And it triggered a whole different line of thoughts, and also he was encouraging us to write to write our secrets, the things that only we know. And that was also interesting. Like it was kind of hard. I like to think about that and to figure it out, but it was a very interesting, nuance on writing, on focusing on those topics. And then the next one that I'm looking forward to do is also to identify my beliefs, the beliefs that I'm holding on to. And so I'm excited again. Not that I ceased, that I had been seized, that I had stopped to be excited about journaling, but that particularly, that sparked some more interest, some renewed interest for it again. So I'm looking forward to next week when I can report on
Yeah,
that.
Nice.
I'm glad you brought that up. That idea of the secrets is one that even to myself is one I just, that really gets, I just think, I think I keep the secrets in the back of my head. I don't really want to even, put it down anywhere where anybody can find that kind of stuff. But really, I'm an adult now. What could possibly,
Yeah, and
let's think about writing these things down. But yeah, that is an interesting exercise that I think I'm going to try myself.
it's true, but like if you keep them in your head, then there must probably be somewhere in your body as well. So wherever you store your emotions, your secrets, and so I think that's a really interesting process, of getting to the things that we store in our head. And the getting things done method also mentioned that that our head is not there to store things; it's there to be inspired and to get new ideas. And if we keep it clogged up, then there's not much room for new things to come in.
How about you, Willow?
I was gonna say I have to suggest the body keeps the score for any of these like emotions or memories being kept in the body. Fantastic resource.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something you said in regard to like your possessions equaling your memories. I think that's also kind of a possible journaling exercise in which you could, write down what those things are and what they mean, or those kind of things. And maybe that's a way to kind of dismiss those things from the necessity of holding those things. I think of a time in my life when I owned a couple properties, and I had like a garage, and I had a chicken coop, and I had a bunch of buildings, and my stuff was strewn all over these buildings. And then people had stored stuff because I had space, so they had moved stuff in. And man, at some point I was like, what in the hell is going on? I mean, I built like a giant pole barn, and it was just loaded with junk of either mine or other people's stuff that, I needed to deal with, and I think to certain parts, getting rid of that stuff from my life. And
Did you just pack a bag and run away?
no, I eventually like sold it off or got rid of it, or let other people take it. Yeah, I got rid of it.
I'm big on giving everything away when I'm done with it. Like houses full of furniture. Okay, getting rid of furniture. Bring me all your Nigerian refugees.
I have this thing about special items like that I have a very strong sentimental attachment to. I have to give them to someone who, at least at the moment, I believe that I'm going to be around for a good amount of time so that I can have what my mom calls visitation rights to go see my stuff and have like my memory experience. That ties into a lot of emotional disassociation because then you get to go revisit the memories, dip your toe in some feelings, get that out of the way for the day, go back to being numb, get your job done, right? That's how normal human beings work, right? I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. No, we're all
No,
crazy.
you're not crazy. You
We're
are not
all
crazy.
crazy.
No.
You're among
How
your
about-
own.
We're all mad here.
Deirdre,
And
how
all
about
our
you?
listeners too. Oh, hello to Adam James too.
Mike, what'd you say?
I wanted to get Deirdre's journaling update.
Oh,
This one's running out of time.
yeah.
Pressure her, why don't you? See if she's on the ball.
Oh, the Under Pressure song just played through my head.
Under pressure.
Yeah. No, so I do the best I can. Like sometimes I'll have like a few days because I'm just busy, and so I'll just continue on from there. I don't know what day it is. I just write down the current day. So I've been going for 24 days straight. So that's not
Yay.
all in one go. I've made 24 journal entries. So that's great.
It's whatever,
So
works
what
for
did you
you.
want to know? I beg your
Just
pardon?
how it's going for you.
Have you noticed it helping?
Yeah, I'm learning about myself. Like, so I've never done it for like a personal thing, right? It's always been like I journal for research. So if I'm researching a topic or something, I'll journal my thoughts out as I go, and I'll write sources down, and I'll have like pages and pages of my thought process. Because I learned that a while ago, because I learned that the reason I did this, started the journaling my research, is because I'd go back over my notes, like, what does that sentence mean? Where did it come from? I vaguely kind of remember, and I'll like go back, and it won't make any connected sense. So it takes journaling in that aspect takes a long time, because I'll have my idea, and then I'll have to write out underneath where I got the idea from and where it's related to the topic. But for me, that helps. But for self discovery, it's new. It's kind of at the moment I'm relating it to our group development. That seems to be working well, so I can journal that. So going through our storming stage and everything, I'm learning a lot about myself.
We all are.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's
Has it?
been.
I was gonna
Go ahead.
ask. Has it? Sorry, I was gonna ask. Has it changed your aspect, or like not aspect, your perspective on anything that you've noticed?
Um, I'll try and say something without saying something. Oh yeah, issues. So issues that I was having, I was kind of like coming to the realization that if I'm to have those issues, I have to accept that I'm not a perfect person. And so, therefore, I can't kind of have those issues, even though they completely make no sense to me. Because the very act of kind of just taking on that pissed offness and even just doing nothing is kind of being aggressive. And that was kind of, yeah, that was kind of new.
It's strange to kind of like sit with your emotions for one of the first times that you can recognize, and you're like, oh, that's what this feels like. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what journaling was for me this week.
Wonderful. Well, I definitely, want to encourage you guys, and I'm very impressed with everybody's continuation to keep going, and enthusiasm that you're having. You guys are definitely demonstrating, exactly what the benefits of this are, and I'm hoping that the audience is really, I think, benefiting from what you guys are bringing forth in regard to your own experience, what your guys' experiences are. I think a lot of people will probably relate to. Certainly, there is a lot of opportunity to not do the journaling. But this journaling all goes, this little habit of journaling will tie into a lot of different things in the future. And as we go through this thing that Tim has put together, as well as a lot of other things, this is going to be one in which the people that do follow us and then take the opportunity to write about their experience, I think are going to be able to go back as well into their own experience and come back to the beginning and see how much we've been able to help them, and how this 1 hour of the time that we give to this audience is going to be really important to them and actually be that most important hour that we claim it is.
Nice.
With that said, thank you everybody for giving us your attention and time. I know we started a little bit late and we went a little bit long, but we'll try to improve on that. So
Actually,
thanks everybody.
we did it perfect hour.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Wonderful.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye bye. Thank you.